the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Vana Parva. Section 42, Indralokagamna Parva. Vasampayana said, after the Lokpalas had gone away, Arjuna, that slayer of all foes, began to think, O monarch, of the car of Indra. And as Gudkesa, gifted with great intelligence, was thinking of it, the car endued with great effulgence and guided by Matali, came dividing the clouds and illuminating the firmament and filling the entire welkin with its rattle deep as the roar of mighty masses of clouds. Swords, and missiles of terrible forms and misses of frightful description, and winged darts of celestial splendor and lightnings of the brightest effulgence, and thunderbolts, and propellers furnished with wheels and worked with atmospheric expansion and producing sounds loud as the roar of great masses of clouds, were on that car. And there were also on that car fierce and huge-bodied nagas with fiery mouths, and heaps of stones white as the fleecy clouds. And the car was drawn by 10,000s of horses of golden hue, endued with the speed of the wind, and furnished with prowess of illusion. The car was drawn with such speed that the eye could hardly mark its progress. And Arjuna saw on that car the flagstaff called Vajayanta, of blazing effulgence, resembling in hue the emerald or the dark blue lotus, and decked with golden ornaments and straight as the bamboo. And beholding a charioteer decked in gold seated on that car, the mighty armed son of Pritha regarded it as belonging to the celestials. And while Arjuna was occupied with his thoughts regarding the car, the charioteer Matali, bending himself after descending from the car, addressed him, saying, O lucky son of Sakra, Sakra himself wisheth to see thee. Ascend thou without loss of time this car that hath been sent by Indra, the chief of the immortals. Thy father, that god of 100 sacrifices, hath commanded me, saying, Bring the son of Kunti hither. Let the gods behold him. And Sankara himself, surrounded by the celestials and rishis and Gandharvas and Apsaras, waited to behold thee, at the command of the chastiser of Paka. Therefore, ascend thou with me from this to the region of the celestials. Thou wilt return after obtaining weapons. Arjuna replied, O Matali, mount thou without loss of time this excellent car, a car that cannot be attained even by hundreds of Rajasuya and horse sacrifices. Even kings of great prosperity who have performed great sacrifices distinguished by large gifts to Brahmanas, even gods and Danvas are not competent to ride this car. He that hath not ascetic merit is not competent to even see or touch this car, far less to ride on it. O blessed one, after thou hast ascended it, and after the horses have become still, I will ascend it, like a virtuous man stepping into the high road of honesty. Vasampayana continued, Matali, the charioteer of Sakra, hearing these words of Arjuna, soon mounted the car and controlled the horses. Arjuna then, with a cheerful heart, purified himself by a bath in the Ganges. And the son of Kunti then duly repeated inaudibly his customary prayers. He then, duly and according to the ordinance, gratified the Pitris with oblations of water. And, lastly, he commenced to invoke the Mandara, that king of mountains, saying, O mountain, thou art ever the refuge of holy, heaven-seeking munis of virtuous conduct and behavior. It is through thy grace, O mountain, that Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Vaisyas attain heaven, and their anxieties gone, sport with the celestials. O king of mountains, O mountain, thou art the asylum of munis, and thou holdest on thy breast numerous sacred shrines. Happily have I dwelt on thy heights. I leave thee now, bidding thee farewell. Oft have I seen thy tablelands and bowers, thy springs and brooks, and the sacred shrines on thy breast. I have also eaten the savory fruits growing on thee, and have slaked my thirst with draughts of perfumed water oozing from thy body. I have also drunk the water of thy springs, sweet as Amrita itself. O mountain, as a child sleepeth happily on the lap of his father, so have I, O king of mountains, O excellent one, sported on thy breast, echoing with the notes of Apsaras and the chanting of the Vedas. O mountain, every day have I lived happily on thy tablelands. Thus having bidden farewell to the mountain, that slayer of hostile heroes, Arjuna, blazing like the sun himself ascended the celestial car. And the Kuru prince, gifted with great intelligence, with a glad heart, coursed through the firmament on that celestial car, effulgent as the sun and of extraordinary achievements. And after he had become invisible to the mortals of the earth, he beheld thousands of cars of extraordinary beauty. And in that region there was no sun or moon or fire to give light, but it blazed in light of its own, generated by virtue of ascetic merit. And those brilliant regions that are seen from the earth in the form of stars, like lamps in the sky, so small in consequence of their distance, though very large, were beheld by the son of Pandu, stationed in their respective places, full of beauty and effulgence and blazing with splendor all their own. And there he beheld royal sages crowned with ascetic success, and heroes who had yielded up their lives in battle, and those that had acquired heaven by their ascetic austerities, by hundreds upon hundreds. And there were also Gandharvas, of bodies blazing like the sun, by thousands upon thousands, as also Guhayakas and Rishis and numerous tribes of Apsaras. And beholding those self-effulgent regions, Falguna became filled with wonder, and made enquiries of Matali. And Matali also gladly replied unto him, saying, These, O son of Pritha, are virtuous persons stationed in their respective places. It is these whom thou hast seen, O exalted one, as stars, from the earth. Then Arjuna saw standing at the gates, Indra's region, the handsome and ever victorious elephant Airavata, furnished with 4 tusks, and resembling the mountain of Kailas with its summits. And coursing along that path of the Siddhas, that foremost of the Kurus and the son of Pandu, sat in beauty like Mandata, that best of kings. Endued with eyes like lotus leaves, he passed through the region set apart for virtuous kings. And the celebrated Arjuna, having thus passed through successive regions of heaven, at last beheld Amravati, the city of Indra. Thus ends the 42nd section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 43, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Vasampayana said, and the city of Indra which Arjuna saw was delightful, and was the resort of Siddhas and Charanas. And it was adorned with the flowers of every season, and with sacred trees of all kinds. And he beheld also celestial gardens called Nandana, the favorite resort of Apsaras. And fanned by the fragrant breezes charged with the farina of sweet-scented flowers, the trees with their load of celestial blossoms seemed to welcome him amongst them. And the region was such that none could behold it who had not gone through ascetic austerities, or who had not poured libations on fire. It was a region for the virtuous alone, and not for those who had turned their back on the field of battle. And none were competent to see it who had not performed sacrifices or observed rigid vows, or who were without a knowledge of the Vedas, or who had not bathed in sacred waters, or who were not distinguished for sacrifices and gifts. And none were competent to see it who were disturbers of sacrifices, or who were low, or who drank intoxicating liquors, or who were violators of their preceptor's bed, or who were eaters of unsanctified meat, or who were wicked. And having beheld those celestial gardens resounding with celestial music, the strong-armed son of Pandu entered the favorite city of Indra. And he beheld their celestial cars by thousands, capable of going everywhere at will, stationed in proper places. And he saw tens of thousands of such cars moving in every direction, and fanned by pleasant breezes charged with the perfumes of flowers. The son of Pandu was praised by Apsaras and Gandharvas. And the celestials then, accompanied by the Gandharvas and Siddhas and great rishis, cheerfully reverenced Pritha's son of white deeds. Benedictions were poured upon him, accompanied by the sounds of celestial music. The strong-armed son of Pritha then heard around him the music of gongs and drums, and praised all around. The son of Pritha then went, at the command of Indra, to that large and extensive starry way, called by the name of Suraviti. There he met with the Sadhyas, the Vishwas, the Mangyutas, the twin Aswins, the Adityas, the Vasis, the Rudras, the Brahmarshis of the great splendor, and numerous royal sages with Dilipa at their head, and Tambura and Narda, and that couple of Gandharvas known by the names of Haha and Huhu. And the Kuru prince, that chastiser of foes, having met and duly saluted them, last of all beheld the chief of the celestials, the god of 100 sacrifices. Then the strong-armed son of Pritha, alighting from the car, approached the lord himself of the gods, his father, that chastiser of Paka. And a beautiful white umbrella furnished with a golden staff was held over the chief of the celestials. And he was fanned with a chamara perfumed with celestial scents. And he was eulogized by many Gandharvas headed by Viswavasu and others, by bards and singers, and by foremost Brahmanas chanting Rik and Yaju's hymns. And the mighty son of Kunti, approaching Indra, saluted him by bending his head to the ground. And Indra thereupon embraced him with his round and plump arms. And taking his hand, Sakra made him sit by him on a portion of his own seat, that sacred seat which was worshipped by gods and rishis. And the lord of the celestials, that slayer of hostile heroes, smelt the head of Arjuna bending in humility, and even took him upon his lap. Seated on Sakra's seat at the command of that god of 1,000 eyes, Pritha's son of immeasurable energy began to blaze in splendor like a second Indra. And moved by affection, the slayer of Vritra, consoling Arjuna, touched his beautiful face with his own perfumed hands. And the wielder of the thunderbolt, patting and rubbing gently again and again with his own hands which bore the marks of the thunderbolt, the handsome and large arms of Arjuna which resembled a couple of golden columns and which were hard in consequence of drawing the bowstring and shooting arrows, began to console him. And the slayer of Vritra, the god of 1,000 eyes, eyeing his son of curly locks smilingly and with eyes expanded with delight, seemed scarcely to be gratified. The more he gazed, the more he liked to gaze on. And seated on one seat, the father and son enhanced the beauty of the assembly, like the sun and moon beautifying the firmament together on the 14th day of the dark fortnight. And a band of Gandharvas headed by Tamburu skilled in music sacred and profane, sang many verses in melodious notes. And Bharitachi and Menka, and Ramba and Purvachatti, and Swayamprabha and Urvasi, and Misrakshi and Dandagori, and Varuthini and Gopali, and Sahjanya and Kumbhayoni, and Prajgara and Chitrasena, and Chitralekha and Saha, and Madhuraswana, these and others by thousands, possessed of eyes like lotus leaves, who were employed in enticing the hearts of persons practicing rigid austerities, danced there. And possessing slim waists and fair large hips, they began to perform various evolutions, shaking their deep bosoms, and casting their glances around, and exhibiting other attractive attitudes capable of stealing the hearts and resolutions and minds of the spectators. Thus ends the 43rd section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 44, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Vasampayana said, the gods and the Gandharvas then, understanding the wishes of Indra, procured an excellent argya and reverenced the son of Pritha in a hurry. And giving water to wash both his feet and face, they caused the prince to enter the palace of Indra. And thus worshipped, Jishnu continued to live in the abode of his father. And the son of Pandu continued all the while to acquire celestial weapons, together with the means of withdrawing them. And he received from the hands of Sakra his favorite weapon of irresistible force, viz., the thunderbolt, and those other weapons also, of tremendous roar, viz., the lightnings of heaven, whose flashes are inferable from the appearance of clouds and the dancing of peacocks. And the son of Pandu, after he had obtained those weapons, recollected his brothers. And at the command of Indra, however, he lived for full 5 years in heaven, surrounded by every comfort and luxury. After some time, when Arjuna had obtained all the weapons, Indra addressed him in due time, saying, O son of Kunti, learn thou music and dancing from Chitrasena. Learn the instrumental music that is current among the celestials and which existeth not in the world of men, for, O son of Kunti, it will be to thy benefit. And Purandara gave Chitrasena as a friend unto Arjuna. And the son of Pritha lived happily and in peace with Chitrasena. And Chitrasena instructed Arjuna all the while in music vocal and instrumental and in dancing. But the active Arjuna obtained no peace of mind, remembering the unfair play at dice of Sakuni, the son of Suvala, and thinking with rage of Dasasana and his death. When however, his friendship with Chitrasena had ripened fully, he at times learned the unrivaled dance and music practiced among the Gandharvas. And at last, having learned various kinds of dance and diverse species of music, both vocal and instrumental, that slayer of hostile heroes obtained no peace of mind, remembering his brothers and mother Kunti. Thus ends the 44th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 45, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Vasampayana said, one day, knowing that Arjuna's glances were cast upon Urvasi, Vaswa, calling Chitrasena to himself, addressed him in private saying, O king of Gandharvas, I am pleased, go thou as my messenger to that foremost of Apsaras, Urvasi, and let her wait upon that tiger among men, Falguna. Tell her, saying these words of mine, as through my instrumentality Arjuna hath learnt all the weapons and other arts, worshipped by all, so shouldst thou make him conversant with the arts of acquitting one's self in female company. Thus addressed by Indra, the chief of the Gandharvas in obedience to that command of Vaswa, soon went to oversee that foremost of Apsaras. And as he saw her, she recognized him and delighted him by the welcome she offered and the salutation she gave. And seated at ease he then smilingly addressed Urvasi, who also was seated at ease, saying, Let it be known, O thou of fair hips, that I come hither dispatched by the one sole Lord of heaven who asketh of thee a favour. He who is known amongst gods and men for his many inborn virtues, for his grace, behavior, beauty of person, words and self-control, who is noted for might and prowess and respected by the virtuous and ready-witted, who is endued with genius and splendid energy, is of a forgiving temper and without malice of any kind, who hath studied the four Vedas with their branches, and the Upanishads, and the Puranas also, who is endued with devotion to his preceptors and with intellect possessed of the eight attributes, who by his abstinence, ability, origin and age, is alone capable of protecting the celestial regions like Magvat himself, who is never boastful, who showeth proper respect to all, who beholdeth the minutest things as clearly as if those were gross and large, who is sweet-speeched, who showereth divers kinds of food and drink on his friends and dependents, who is truthful, worshipped of all, eloquent, handsome, and without pride, who is kind to those devoted to him, and universally pleasing and dear to all, who is firm in promise, who is equal to even Mahendra and Varuna in respect of every desirable attribute, viz. Arjuna, is known to thee, O Urvasi. No doubt that hero is to be made to taste the joys of heaven. Commanded by Indra, let him today obtain thy feet. Do this, O amiable one, for Dhananjaya is inclined to thee. Thus addressed, Urvasi of faultless features assumed a smiling face, and receiving the words of the Gandharv with high respect, answered with a glad heart, saying, hearing of the virtues that should adorn men, as unfolded by thee, I would bestow my favors upon anyone who happened to possess them. Why should I not then choose Arjuna for a lover, at the command of Indra, and for my friendship for thee, and moved also by the numerous virtues of Falguna, I am already under the influence of the god of love. Go thou, therefore, to the place thou desirest. I shall gladly go to Arjuna. Thus ends the 45th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 46, Indralokachmana Parva continued. Vasampayana said, having thus sent away the Gandharv successful in his mission, Urvasi of luminous smiles, moved by the desire of possessing Falguna, took a bath, and having performed her ablutions, she decked herself in charming ornaments and splendid garlands of celestial odor, and inflamed by the god of love, and her heart pierced through and through by the shafts shot by Manmatha, keeping in view the beauty of Arjuna, and her imagination wholly taken up by the thoughts of Arjuna, she mentally sported with him on a wide and excellent bed laid over with celestial sheets. And when the twilight had deepened and the moon was up, that Apsara of high hips set out for the mansions of Arjuna. And in that mood and with her crisp, soft and long braids decked with bunches of flowers, she looked extremely beautiful. With her beauty and grace, and the charm of the motions of her eyebrows and of her soft accents, and her own moon-like face, she seemed to tread, challenging the moon himself. And as she proceeded, her deep, finely tapering bosoms, decked with a chain of gold and adorned with celestial unguents and smeared with fragrant sandal paste, began to tremble. And in consequence of the weight of her bosoms, she was forced to slightly stoop forward at every step, bending her waist exceedingly beautiful with 3 folds. And her loins of faultless shape, the elegant abode of the god of love, furnished with fair and high and round hips, and wide at their lower part as a hill, and decked with chains of gold, and capable of shaking the saintship of anchorites, being decked with thin attire, appeared highly graceful. And her feet with fair suppressed ankles, and possessing flat soles and straight toes of the color of burnished copper and dorsum, high and curved like tortoise backs and marked by the wearing of ornaments, furnished with rows of little bells, looked exceedingly handsome, and exhilarated with a little liquor which she had taken, and excited by desire, and moving in divers attitudes and expressing a sensation of delight, she looked more handsome than usual. And though heaven abounded with many wonderful objects, yet when Urvasi proceeded in this manner, the Siddhas and Gamnas and Gandharvas regarded her to be the handsomest object they had cast their eyes upon, and the upper half of her body clad in an attire of fine texture and cloudy hues, she looked resplendent like a digit of the moon in the firmament shrouded by fleecy clouds, and endued with the speed of the winds or the mind, she of luminous smiles soon reached the mansion of Falguna, the son of Pandu. And, O best of men, Urvasi of beautiful eyes, having arrived at the gate of Arjuna's abode, sent word through the keeper in attendance. And on receiving permission, she soon entered that brilliant and charming palace. But, O monarch, upon beholding her at night in his mansion, Arjuna, with a fear-stricken heart, stepped up to receive her with respect, and as soon as he saw her, the son of Pritha, from modesty, closed his eyes, and saluting her, he offered the Apsara such worship as is offered unto a superior. And Arjuna said, O thou foremost of the Apsaras, I reverence thee by bending my head down. O lady, let me know thy commands. I wait upon thee as thy servant. Vasampayana continued, hearing these words of Falguna, Urvasi became deprived of her senses. And she soon represented unto Arjuna all that had passed between her and the Gandharv, Chitrasena. And she said, O best of men, I shall tell thee all that hath passed between me and Chitrasena, and why I have come hither. On account of thy coming here, O Arjuna, Mahendra had convened a large and charming assembly, in which celestial festivities were held. Unto that assembly came, O best of men, the Rudras and the Adityas and the Aswins and the Vasis. And there came also numbers of great rishis and royal sages and siddhas and charanas and yakshas and great nagas. And, O thou of expansive eyes, the members of the assembly resplendent as fire or the sun or the moon, having taken their seats according to rank, honor, and prowess, O son of Sakra, the Gandharvas began to strike the vinas and sing charming songs of celestial melody. And, O perpetuator of the Kuru race, the principal Apsaras also commenced to dance. Then, O son of Pritha, thou hadst looked on me only with a steadfast gaze. When that assembly of the celestials broke, commanded by thy father, the gods went away to their respective places. And the principal Apsaras also went away to their abodes, and others also, O slayer of foes, commanded by thy father and obtaining his leave. It was then that Chitrasena was sent to me by Sakra, and arriving at my abode, O thou of eyes like lotus leaves, he addressed me, saying, O thou of the fairest complexion, I have been sent unto thee by the chief of the celestials. Do thou something that would be agreeable to Mahendra and myself and to thyself also. O thou of fair hips, seek thou to please Arjuna, who is brave in battle even like Sakra himself, and who is always possessed of magnanimity. Even these, O son of Pritha, were his words. Thus, O sinless one, commanded by him and thy father also, I come to thee in order to wait upon thee, O slayer of foes. My heart hath been attracted by thy virtues, and am already under the influence of the god of love. And, O hero, even this is my wish, and I have cherished it forever. Vasampayana continued, while in heaven, hearing her speak in this strain, Arjuna was overcome with bashfulness, and shutting his ears with his hands, He said, O blessed lady, fie on my sense of hearing, when thou speakest thus to me. For, O thou of beautiful face, thou art certainly equal in my estimation unto the wife of a superior. Even as Kunti of high fortune or Sachi the queen of Indra, art thou to me, O auspicious one, of this there is no doubt. That I had gazed particularly at thee, O blessed one, is true. There was a reason for it. I shall truly tell it to thee. Listen, O thou of luminous smiles. In the assembly I gazed at thee with eyes expanded in delight, thinking, even this blooming lady is the mother of the Kaurava race. O blessed Apsara, it behoveth thee not to entertain other feelings towards me, for thou art superior to my superiors, being the parent of my race. Hearing these words of Arjuna, Urvasi answered, saying, O son of the chief of the celestials, we Apsaras are free and unconfined in our choice. It behoveth thee not, therefore, to esteem me as thy superior. The sons and grandsons of Puru's race, that have come hither in consequence of ascetic merit do all sport with us, without incurring any sin. Relent therefore, O hero, it behoveth thee not to send me away. I am burning with desire. I am devoted to thee. Accept me, O thou giver of proper respect. Arjuna replied, O beautiful lady of features perfectly faultless, listen. I truly tell thee. Let the four directions and the transverse directions, let also the gods listen. O sinless one, as Kunti, or Madri, or Sachi, is to me, so art thou, the parent of my race, an object of reverence to me. Return, O thou of the fairest complexion, I bend my head unto thee, and prostrate myself at thy feet. Thou deservest my worship as my own mother, and it behoveth thee to protect me as a son. Vasampayana continued, thus addressed by Parth, Urvasi was deprived of her senses by wrath. Trembling with rage, and contracting her brows, she cursed Arjuna, saying, Since thou disregardest a woman come to thy mansion at the command of thy father, and of her own motion a woman besides, who is pierced by the shafts of Kama, therefore, O Parth, thou shalt have to pass thy time among females unregarded, and as a dancer, and destitute of manhood and scorned as a eunuch. Vasampayana continued, having cursed Arjuna thus, Urvasi's lips still quivered in anger, herself breathing heavily all the while. And she soon returned to her own abode. And that slayer of foes, Arjuna so sought Chitrasena without loss of time. And having found him, he told him all that had passed between him and Urvasi in the night. And he told Chitrasena everything as it had happened, repeatedly referring to the curse pronounced upon him. And Chitrasena also represented everything unto Sakra. And Harivana, calling his son unto himself in private, and consoling him in sweet words, smilingly said, O thou best of beings, having obtained thee, O child, Pritha hath today become a truly blessed mother. O mighty armed one, thou hast now vanquished even rishis by thy patience and self-control. But, O giver of proper respect, the curse that Urvasi hath denounced on thee will be to thy benefit, O child, and stand thee in good stead. O sinless one, ye will have on earth to pass the 13th year of your exile, unknown to all. It is then that thou shalt suffer the curse of Urvasi. And having passed 1 year as a dancer without manhood, thou shalt regain thy power on the expiration of the term. Thus addressed by Sakra, that slayer of hostile heroes, Falguna, experienced great delight and ceased to think of the curse. And Dhananjaya, the son of Pandu, sported in the regions of heaven with the Gandharv Chitrasena of great celebrity. The desires of the man that listeneth to this history of the son of Pandu never run after lustful ends. The foremost of men, by listening to this account of the awfully pure conduct of Falguna, the son of the Lord of the Celestials, become void of pride and arrogance and wrath and other faults, and ascending to heaven, sport there in bliss. Thus ends the 46th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 47, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Vasampayana said, one day, the great Rishi Lomisa in course of his wanderings, went to the abode of Indra, desirous of beholding the Lord of the Celestials. And the great Muni, having approached the chief of the gods, bowed to him respectfully. And he beheld the son of Pandu occupying half of the seat of Vasva, and worshipped by the great rishis. That foremost of Brahmanas sat on an excellent seat at the desire of Sakra. And beholding Arjuna seated on Indra's seat, the rishi began to think as to how Arjuna, who was a Kshatriya, had attained to the seat of Sakra himself. What acts of merit had been performed by him, and what regions had been conquered by him by ascetic merit, that he had obtained a seat that was worshipped by the gods themselves. And as the rishi was employed with these thoughts, Sakra, the slayer of Vritra, came to know of them. And having known them, the lord of Sachi addressed Lomesa with a smile and said, listen, O Brahmarshi, about what is now passing in thy mind. This one is no mortal, though he hath taken his birth among men. O great Rishi, the mighty armed hero is even my son born of Kunti. He hath come hither, in order to acquire weapons for some purpose. Alas! Dost thou not recognize him as an ancient Rishi of the highest merit? Listen to me, O Brahmana, as I tell thee who he is and why he hath come to me. Those ancient and excellent rishis who were known by the names of Nara and Narayana are, know, O Brahmana, none else than Hrishikesa and Dhananjaya. And those rishis, celebrated throughout the three worlds, and known by the names of Nara and Narayana, have for the accomplishment of a certain purpose, been born on earth for the acquisition of virtue. That sacred asylum which even gods and illustrious rishis are not competent to behold, and which is known throughout the worlds by the name of Vadari, and situate by the source of the Ganga, which is worshipped by the Siddhas and the Charanas, was the abode, O Brahmana, of Vishnu and Jishnu. Those rishis of blazing splendor have, O Brahmarshi, at my desire, been born on earth, and endued with mighty energy, will lighten the burden thereof. Besides this, there are certain asuras known as Nivatkavachas, who, proud of the boon they have acquired, are employed in doing us injuries. Boastful of their strength, they are even now planning the destruction of the gods, for, having received a boon, they no longer regard the gods. Those fierce and mighty Danvas live in the nether regions. Even all the celestials together are incapable of fighting with them. The blessed Vishnu, the slayer of Madhu, he indeed who is known on earth as Kapila, and whose glance alone, O exalted one, destroyed the illustrious sons of Sagra when they approached him with loud sounds in the bowels of the earth. That illustrious and invincible Hari is capable, O Brahmana, of doing us a great service. Either he or part or both may do us that great service, without doubt. Verily, as the illustrious Hari had slain the Nagas in the great lake, he, by sight alone, is capable of slaying those asuras called the Nivatkavachas along with their followers. But the slayer of Madhu should not be urged when the task is insignificant. A mighty mass of energy that he is, if it swelleth to increasing proportions, it may consume the whole universe. This Arjuna also is competent to encounter them all, and the hero, having slain them in battle, will go back to the world of men. Go thou at my request to the earth. Thou wilt behold the brave Yudhishthira living in the woods of Kamyak. And for me tell thou the virtuous Yudhishthira of unbaffled prowess in battle, that he should not be anxious on account of Falguna, for that hero will return to earth a thorough master of weapons, for without sanctified prowess of arms, and without skill in weapons, he would not be able to encounter Bhishma and Drona and others in battle. Thou wilt also represent unto Yudhishthira that the illustrious and mighty armed Gudkesa, having obtained weapons, hath also mastered the science of celestial dancing and music, both instrumental and vocal. And thou wilt also tell him, O King of men, O Slayer of foes, thyself also accompanied by all thy brothers should see the various sacred shrines. For having bathed in different sacred waters, thou wilt be cleansed from thy sins, and the fever of thy heart will abate. And then thou wilt be able to enjoy thy kingdom, happy in the thought that thy sins have been washed off. And, O foremost of Brahmanas, endued with ascetic power, it behoveth thee also to protect Yudhishthira during his wandering over the earth. Fierce Rakshasas ever live in mountain fastnesses and rugged steppes. Protect thou the king from those cannibals. After Mahendra had spoken thus unto Lomisa, Vibhatsu also reverently addressed that rishi, saying, Protect thou ever the son of Pandu. O best of men, let the king, O great rishi, protected by thee, visit the various places of pilgrimage, and give away unto Brahmanas in charity. Vasampayana continued, the mighty ascetic Lomisa, having answered both, saying, So be it, set out for the earth, desirous of arriving at Kamyak. And having arrived at those woods, he beheld the slayer of foes and son of Kunti, King Yudhishthira the Just, surrounded by ascetics and his younger brothers. Thus ends the 47th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 48, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Janamejaya said, These feats of Pritha's son, endued with immeasurable energy, were certainly marvelous. O Brahmana, what did Dhritarashtra of great wisdom say, when he heard of them? Vasampayana said, Ambika's son, King Dhritarashtra, having heard of Arjuna's arrival and stay at Indra's abode, from Dwaipayana, that foremost of rishis, spake unto Sanjaya, saying, O charioteer, dost thou know in detail the acts of the intelligent Arjuna, of which I have heard from beginning to end? O charioteer, my wretched and sinful son is even now engaged in a policy of the most vulgar kind. Of wicked soul, he will certainly depopulate the earth. The illustrious person whose words even in jest are true, and who hath Dhananjaya to fight for him, is sure to win the three worlds. Who that is even beyond the influence of death and decay will be able to stay before Arjuna, when he will scatter his barbed and sharp-pointed arrows whetted on stone? My wretched sons, who have to fight with the invincible Pandavas, are indeed all doomed. Reflecting day and night, I see not the warrior amongst us that is able to stay in battle before the wielder of the Gandiva. If Drona, or Karna, or even Bhishma advance against him in battle, a great calamity is likely to befall the earth. But even in that case, I see not the way to our success. Karna is kind and forgetful. The preceptor Drona is old, and the teacher of Arjuna. Arjuna, however, is wrathful and strong and proud and of firm and steady prowess. As all these warriors are invincible, a terrible fight will take place between them. All of them are heroes skilled in weapons and of great reputation. They would not wish for the sovereignty of the world, if it was to be purchased by defeat. Indeed, peace will be restored only on the death of these, or of Falguna. The slayer of Arjuna, however, existeth not, nor doth one that can vanquish him. Oh, how shall that wrath of his which hath myself for its object be pacified? Equal unto the chief of the celestials, that hero gratified Agni at Kandava and vanquished all the monarchs of the earth on the occasion of the great Rajasuya. O Sanjay, the thunderbolt falling on the mountain top, leaveth a portion unconsumed, but the shafts, O child, that are shot by Kiriti leave not a rock behind. As the rays of the sun heat this mobile and immobile universe, so will the shafts shot by Arjuna's hands scorch my sons. It seemeth to me that the charmers of the Bharatas, terrified at the clatter of Arjuna's chariot wheels, are already broken through in all directions. Vidhatri hath created Arjuna as an all-consuming destroyer. He stayeth in battle as a foe, vomiting and scattering swarms of arrows. Who is there that will defeat him? Thus ends the 48th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 49, Indralokagamna Parva continued. Sanjay said, that which hath been uttered by thee, O king, with respect to Duryodhan is all true. Nothing that thou hast said, O Lord of the earth, is untrue. The Pandavas of immeasurable energy have been filled with rage at the sight of Krishna, their wedded wife of pure fame, brought in the midst of the assembly. Hearing also those cruel words of Dasasana and Karna, they have been so incensed, O king, that they will not, I ween, forgive the Kurus on my account. I have heard, O king, how Arjuna hath gratified in battle by means of his bow, the god of gods Sthanu of 11 forms. The illustrious lord of all the gods Kapadin himself, desirous of testing Falguna, fought with him, having assumed the guise of a Kireta. And there it was that the Lokpala, in order to give away their weapons unto that bull of the Kuru race, showed themselves unto him of undeteriorating prowess. What other man on earth, except Falguna, would strive to have a sight of these gods in their own forms? And, O king, who is there that will weaken in battle Arjuna, who could not be weakened by Maheswara himself possessed of 8 forms? Thy sons, having dragged Draupadi, and thereby incensed the sons of Pandu, have brought this frightful and horrifying calamity upon themselves. Beholding Duryodhan showing both his thighs unto Draupadi, Bhima said with quivering lips, Wretch! Those thighs of thine will I smash with my fierce descending make, on the expiration of 13 years. All the sons of Pandu are the foremost of smiters, all of them are of immeasurable energy, all of them are well versed in every kind of weapons. For these, they are incapable of being vanquished even by the gods. Incensed at the insult offered to their wedded wife, Pritha's sons, urged by wrath, will I ween slay all thy sons in battle. Dhritarashtra said, O charioteer, what mischief hath been done by Karna uttering those cruel words to the sons of Pandu? Was not the enmity sufficient that was provoked by bringing Krishna into the assembly? How can my wicked sons live, whose eldest brother and preceptor walketh not in the path of righteousness? Seeing me void of eyesight, and incapable of exerting myself actively, my wretched son, O charioteer, believeth me to be a fool, and listeneth not to my words. Those wretches also that are his counselors, viz., Karna and Suvala, and others, always pander to his vices, as he is incapable of understanding things rightly. The shafts that Arjuna of immeasurable prowess may lightly shoot, are capable of consuming all my sons, leave alone those shafts that he will shoot impelled by anger. The arrows urged by the might of Arjuna's arms and shot from his large bow, and inspired with mantras capable of converting them into celestial weapons can chastise the celestials themselves. He who hath for his counselor and protector and friend that smiter of sinful men the Lord of the three worlds, Hari himself, encountereth nothing that he cannot conquer. This, O Sanjay, is most marvelous in Arjuna that, as we have heard, he hath been clasped by Mahadev in his arms. That also which Falguna, assisted by Damodara, did of old towards helping Agni in the conflagration of Kandava, hath been witnessed by all the world. When therefore, Bhima and Parth and Vasudeva of the Satvata race become enraged, surely my sons along with their friends and the Suvalas are all unequal to fight with them. Thus ends the 49th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Janamenjaya said, having sent the heroic sons of Pandu into exile, these lamentations, O Muni, of Dhritarashtra were perfectly futile. Why did the king permit his foolish son Duryodhana to thus incense those mighty warriors, the sons of Pandu? Tell us now, O Brahmana, what was the food of the sons of Pandu, while they lived in the woods? Was it of the wilderness, or was it the produce of cultivation? Vasampayana said, those bulls among men, collecting the produce of the wilderness and killing the deer with pure arrows, first dedicated a portion of the food to the Brahmanas, and themselves ate the rest. For, O king, while those heroes wielding large bows lived in the woods, they were followed by Brahmanas of both classes, viz., those worshipping with fire and those worshipping without it. And there were 10,000 illustrious Snedka Brahmanas, all conversant with the means of salvation, whom Yudhishthira supported in the woods. And killing with arrows Ruras and the black deer and other kinds of clean animals of the wilderness, he gave them unto those Brahmanas. And no one that lived with Yudhishthira looked pale or ill, or was lean or weak, or was melancholy or terrified. And the chief of the Kurus, the virtuous king Yudhishthira, maintained his brothers as if they were his sons, and his relatives as if they were his uterine brothers. And Draupadi of pure fame fed her husbands and the Brahmanas, as if she was their mother, and last of all took her food herself. And the king himself wending towards the east, and Bhima, towards the south, and the twins, towards the west and the north, daily killed with bow in hand the deer of the forest, for the sake of meat. And it was that the Pandavas lived for 5 years in the woods of Kamyak, in anxiety at the absence of Arjuna, and engaged all the while in study and prayers and sacrifices. Thus ends the 50th section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 51, Indralohitamna Parva continued. Vasampayana said, that bull among men Dhritarashtra the son of Ambika, having heard of this wonderful way of life so above that of men of the sons of Pandu, was filled with anxiety and grief, and overwhelmed with melancholy and sighing heavily and hot. That monarch, addressing his charioteer Sanjay, said, O charioteer, a moment's peace I have not, either during the day or the night, thinking of the terrible misbehavior of my sons arising out of their past gambling, and thinking also of the heroism, the patience, the high intelligence, the unbearable prowess, and the extraordinary love unto one another of the sons of Pandu. Amongst the Pandavas, the illustrious Nakula and Sahdeva, of celestial origin and equal unto the chief himself of the celestials in splendor, are invincible in battle. They are firm in the wielding of weapons, capable of shooting at a long distance, resolute in battle, of remarkable lightness of hand, of wrath that is not easily quelled, possessed of great steadiness, and endued with activity, possessed of the prowess of lions and unbearable as the Aswins themselves, when they will come to the field of battle with Bhima and Arjuna in front, I see, O Sanjay, that my soldiers will all be slain without a remnant. Those mighty warriors of celestial origin, unrivaled in battle by anybody, filled with rage at the remembrance of that insult to Draupadi, will show no forgiveness. The mighty warriors of the Vrishnis also, and the Panchalas of great energy, and the sons of Pritha themselves, led by Vasudeva of unbaffled prowess, will blast my legions. O charioteer, all the warriors on my side assembled together, are not competent to bear the impetus of the Vrishnis alone when commanded by Rama and Krishna. And amongst them will move that great warrior Bhima of terrible prowess, armed with his iron make held on high and capable of slaying every hero. And high above the din will be heard the twang of the Gandiva loud as the thunder of heaven. The impetus of Bhima's make and the loud twang of the Gandiva are incapable of being stood against by any of the kings on my side. It is then, O Sanjay, that obedient as I have been to the voice of Duryodhan, I shall have to call back the rejected counsels of my friends' counsels that I should have attended to in time. Sanjay said, This hath been thy great fault, O king, viz, that, though capable, thou didst not from affection prevent thy son from doing what he hath done. The slayer of Madhu, that hero of unfading glory, hearing that the Pandavas had been defeated at Dice, soon went to the woods of Kamyak and consoled them there. And Draupadi's sons also headed by Drishtadayumna, and Virata, and Drishtaketu, and those mighty warriors, the Kakeyas, all went there. All that was said by these warriors at the sight of Pandu's son defeated at Dice, was learned by me through our spies. I have also told thee all, O king. When the slayer of Madhu met the Pandavas, they requested him to become the charioteer of Falguna in battle. Hari himself, thus requested, answered them, saying, So be it, and even Krishna himself beholding the sons of Pritha dressed in deer skins, became filled with rage, and addressing Yudhishthira, said, That prosperity which the sons of Pritha had acquired at Indraprastha, and which, unobtainable by other kings, was beheld by me at the Rajasuya sacrifice, at which besides, I saw all kings, even those of the Vangas and Angas, and Poundras and Odras, and Cholas and Dravidas, and Andakas, and the chiefs of many islands, and countries on the seaboard as also of frontier states, including the rulers of the Sinhalas, the barbarous Mlekkas, the natives of Lanka, and all the kings of the west by hundreds, and all the chiefs of the sea coast, and the kings of the Pahlavas and the Daradas and the various tribes of the Kiretas and Yavnas, and Sakras and the Harahunas, and Chinas and Tukaras, and the Sindhavas and the Jagodas, and the Ramanthas and the Mundas, and the inhabitants of the kingdom of women, and the Tanganas and the Kakeyas, and the Malvas and the inhabitants of Kasumira, afraid of the prowess of your weapons, present in obedience to your invitation, performing various offices, that prosperity, king, so unstable and waiting at present on the foe, I shall restore to thee, depriving thy foe of his very life. I shall, O chief of the Kurus, assisted by Rama and Bhima, and Arjuna and the twins, and Akrura and Gada, and Shambhan and Pradyumna, and Ahuka and the heroic Drishtadayumna, and the son of Sisupala, slay in battle in course of a day Duryodhan and Karna, and Dasasana and Suvala's son, and all others who may fight against us. And thou shalt, O Bharata, living at Hastinapura along with thy brothers, and snatching from Dhritarashtra's party the prosperity they are enjoying, rule this earth. Even these, O king, were Krishna's words unto Yudhishthira, who, on the conclusion of Krishna's speech, addressed him in that meeting of heroes and in the hearing of all those brave warriors headed by Dhrishtadhyumna, saying, O Janardana, I accept these words of thine as truth. O thou of mighty arms, do thou, however, slay my enemies along with all their followers on the expiry of 13 years. O Keswa, promise this truly unto me. I promised in the presence of the king to live in the forest as I am now living. Consenting to these words of King Yudhishthira the Just, his counselors headed by Dhrishtadhyumna soon pacified the incensed Keswa with sweet words and expressions suitable to the occasion. And they also said unto Draupadi of pure deeds in the hearing of Vasudeva himself, these words, O lady, in consequence of thy anger, Duryodhan shall lay down his life. We promise it, O thou of the fairest complexion. Therefore, grieve no more. O Krishna, those that mocked thee, beholding thee won at dice, shall reap the fruit of their act. Beasts of prey and birds shall eat their flesh, and mock them thus. Jackals and vultures will drink their blood. And, O Krishna, thou shalt behold the bodies of those wretches that dragged thee by the hair prostrate on the earth, dragged and eaten by carnivorous animals. They also that gave thee pain and disregarded thee, shall lie on the earth destitute of their heads, and the earth herself shall drink their blood. These and other speeches of various kinds were uttered there, O king, by those bulls of the Bharata race. All of them are endued with energy and bravery, and marked with the marks of battle. On the expiration of the 13th year, those mighty warriors, chosen by Yudhishthira and headed by Vasudeva, will come to the field of battle. Rama and Krishna, and Dhananjaya and Pradyumna, and Shambhan and Yuyudhna, and Bhima and the sons of Madri, and the Kekya princes and the Panchala princes, accompanied by the king of Matsya, these all, illustrious and celebrated and invincible heroes, with their followers and troops, will come. Who is there that, desiring to live, will encounter these in battle, resembling angry lions of erect manes? Dhritarashtra said, what Vidura told me at the time of the game at dice, if thou seekest, O king, to vanquish the Pandavas at dice, then certainly a terrible bloodshed ending in the destruction of all the Kurus will be the result, I think is about to be realized. As Vidura told me of old, without doubt a terrible battle will take place, as soon as the pledged period of the Pandavas expireth. Thus ends the 51st section in the Indralokagamna Parva of the Vana Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.